Welcome to the Vault Archons. This is the Keeper of Keys, Kraz. And tonight we're just putting some of these decks. I went through and sorted all my decks and I found some that I felt were all relatively balanced. So I'm putting these decks together so that after the Christmas season, when the kids are all back in school, I can work on giving these away to like a local kids league for Keyforge. So I'm going to be helping set that up, and these decks are just going to be part of the process, you know, what they'll need to play. And so I'm putting each one of these decks back into a box. Now obviously they've been rewrapped. I mean, I'm not trying to hide that in any way, shape, or form. These are just you know, because I can't play everything. And so instead of letting these go to waste, I'm just gonna put them in boxes for the kids so that they can open them and they can enjoy them. You know, getting to open a deck's just fun, and I don't think it matters whether, you know, it's been resealed or not. If you know it's been resealed and it was given to you, I mean, still gonna be cool and fun, I think. So that way hopefully they'll all have relatively balanced decks. I'll know if I was wrong, you know, because one deck or another will end up trouncing the other decks in the group. But we're giving away, I don't know, I guess it depends on how many kids there are, but hopefully I have enough. I think I have about 18 that I've decided I can give away. That would just be, you know, nice and balanced for the kids to play. I did remove my worst decks from the selection, decks that just were absolutely, utterly, completely terrible. All those were just removed automatically. I don't think it'd be fun for a kid to play any of those decks. Now there's not a lot of them, but there's enough for me to have had removed them, because I don't want some poor kid getting stuck with a deck that just, you know, is so poorly balanced, I guess would be the way to put it. You know, they wouldn't have fun playing against their peers, and you know, I think that would be a negative experience. So I decided to remove all those. So I removed those decks. So this is what we're doing. Sorry if I'm off screen when I'm doing that, but we're putting kind of like a little paper jacket around it, and the whole idea behind this is keeps the cards from sliding. So if you look right now, it's not completely aligned yet, but if you look, the cards don't really slide around a lot, and so they're just going to be safer. And I'm putting them up in a stack up here as we go. Hold on, I need water. Okay, I'm back. So hopefully I didn't just break my camera. I just dropped it on the ground, so I guess we'll find out if it's recording later. But we shall see. Oh, 1 second. Got totally distracted. Okay, so back to this. So how many of you out there are actually giving away Keyforge for the holidays? Are you giving away decks you didn't like? Are you giving away sealed decks? Are you giving away any Keyforge at all, I guess? I'm just kind of curious, you know, how many people are giving away Keyforge over the holidays. Now, of course, this for me isn't going to happen until after the holidays, but not a lot I can do about that, given the circumstances. I still got to make tokens, because everybody needs tokens to play, and they're younger kids, so, you know, they're going to need tokens. So I figure, you know, I got to take care of all that. So yeah, early January is definitely going to be probably the time that I'm able to finally do this and be done with it, you know, and you know, let the kids get a hold of the game, and I think that'll be really cool for them. I'm going to probably have to help teach, and I've also got some other people who are probably going to help me teach, so that should be pretty cool. I look forward to getting to show them how to play. Don't know how long I'm going to, you know, do whatever, you know. I mean, hopefully a league or something forms around here somewhere for, you know, all the kids and stuff, but I guess we'll see what happens. There's not a lot I can do about something like that. So hopefully, I mean, you know, we'll see. I mean, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, and then just you know, overall, just you know, getting ready for the holiday seasons, enjoying myself. You know, trying to, you know, deal with the fact that, you know, I wasn't the only one who got sick, and I've just been really busy and trying to get this done, and just, you know, just a lot to do. And then of course sorting all the decks out and stuff, trying to figure out what is what, you know, is something good, is something bad, you know, and then, you know, accepting that there's a certain margin of error where I'm going to be wrong and something's going to be good and I didn't think it was. Something's going to be bad and I thought it was good. You know, there's going to be that margin of error, definitely. And so I've tried to keep, you know, that in mind when doing all this. You know, and I really think that overall, I mean, these decks aren't perfect. You know, they're, you know, but they've got some good cards. You know, some of them have really good boards. You know, they've got usually they have stuff that allows for board wiping. You know, they have stuff that controls amber. You know, they just, you know, they're just decent overall decks. They're not, you know, they're not ones that I would think are crippled. You know, there's a couple decks in the game that I just think are, you know, are just really in need of, you know, anything, any other card. There's definitely decks out there that are like that, you know, would just benefit from having any other card selection, because their card selection is just so poor. They have no board wipes. They have, you know, a weak board. They have no amber control, and it's just like, wow, this deck can't do anything other than just get slaughtered by anything it faces. I do have one of those decks, and talk about a weak deck. Like, that is a whole different story on the level of, you know, weak and pathetic decks. So there are those. They do exist. They're insanely rare. You're not going to see them very often. Now, you might see them a whole lot more frequently online, you know, like on eBay or something like that. You're definitely going to see more of them on there. And that's just because, you know, the number of, you know, once the good decks sell, the number of bad decks is only going to increase. You know, and so the relative junk you have to sort through versus the treasure, you know, is a diminishing thing, especially, you know, as a set goes on. So like in this set, Call of the Archon, as long as this set goes on, you know, the number of not good decks will increase, and the number of good, you know, decks will increase. And I think in the late game of this, because it looks like this, yeah, their next print run is a ways out. As much as I wanted it to be soon, it's a ways out, and so we have to live with that and accept that, and, you know, be totally cool with that. So I do think that we are going to see, you know, people start developing, you know, there is going to end up being a scene where you've got the people that have the more powerful decks, you know, and they're going to be out there wanting to be more competitive. I think you're going to see that. I mean, really, you see that in any game. You know, if there's a competitive element in it, people are going to be competitive. I think there is going to be a healthy competitive scene in Keyforge. Now, I do think there are going to be some, now I've already seen them, there's going to be some decks out there that potentially could be considerably broken. But then, you know, I don't know how many of those decks generated with really good cards. Now I could go look, but, you know, the combination I know of, that there's 140 something of those decks, and, you know, looking through all those decks just, you know, doesn't really appeal to me right now. It just seems like a lot for, you know, to just find out one thing or another. But potentially one of those decks could be really bad, especially if it has just other good cards in it. Most of those decks probably aren't going to be any good, you know, unless they manage to get to that combo. So like a mill deck combined with that combo could be really bad. So maybe one of those decks contains that. So I mean, like I said, I just think you're going to see a lot of stuff, you know, once we get into the more competitive portion of Keyforge. And I think that's going to be a month or two from now, you know, when it really kind of picks up. I think we are going to see that competitive scene develop. I don't know if I, you know, have the means to be able to participate in that kind of stuff. Also, I'm not, you know, I don't want to be around people that much. I kind of like my isolated life. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. But I don't think I'll end up. I personally don't think I will end up in the competitive scene. Now you may find me at an event or two here or there, but it won't be because I'm there to compete. I'll be there to enjoy myself. You know, I'll be there to just play cards. So if you guys do see me, cool, and if not, cool. But I don't know whether I'll be able to make any events or not, so we'll see. You know, I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know if any events are even going to come anywhere near me. You know, we're talking, you know, closer than 5 hours away, 6 hours away. So if that's the case, I probably won't end up in any of that, just because it's such a gigantic distance for me to travel. So, but we'll see. You know, I don't know. I haven't completely written it off. I just have a lot of stuff I need to do, and that seems like time I don't really have. So I do think it's going to develop. I think, you know, and I think you already see people getting a little bit competitive. And you know, I mean, like one of the things I would enjoy doing is getting to play, you know, against some of the people. You know, I think that would be fun. You know, enjoyable. You know, I'd love to play against some of the other people that do this kind of stuff. I think that'd be interesting. You know, maybe one of these days I'll travel and, you know, and do something like that. But I don't know. Like I said, it's just one of those things that I haven't spent much time doing. I'm still hoping to form a small scene. You know, about, I don't know, probably 30-45 minutes away from me. Probably the best chance of forming it is probably in that area. So that may or may not happen. If that does, that would be cool. That would definitely give me somewhere to play more. I do have some local friends that are going to be coming over. That's going to let me play more. I mean, because, you know, I do want to play people other than my daughters. I love playing against my daughters, but I do want to play other people too. So I look forward to, you know, to getting to do that. I look forward to getting to play these cards with, you know, with the local kids and teach them how the game works. I think that'll be fun. You know, I just look forward to that kind of stuff. You know, I think that's, you know, really kind of more what I'm about. You know, I'm not looking for, you know, to be some kind of pro tour person or anything like that. That's completely unappealing to me. Like absolutely unappealing to me. I'd much rather just kind of, you know, hang out and do this kind of stuff for people. You know, make my channel, enjoy what I'm doing. You know, because I do enjoy what I'm doing. I'm enjoying making these videos. You know, I love, as I've said before, I love games. So, you know, this isn't a big stretch for me to do with the little bit of free time I do have. This kind of gives me something to unwind with, and this, to me, this is really relaxing. I know some people might find this stuff kind of boring, and that's perfectly understandable, you know. But, you know, doing collections, collecting stuff, to me, it's just a lot of fun. You know, like, it's just, I don't know, it's just very enjoyable to me. You know, you get to do something that is, you know, unusual, you know, relative to, you know, all the other stuff you can do. I mean, everybody can, you know, everybody can get on a computer. You know, that's not, you know, a big thing. You know, everybody's on one of those. You know, but collectible hobbies and stuff like that, you know, this kind of stuff to me is really cool. It more weathers the test of time than, say, you know, other things, I think. Now, of course, you know, video games are going to weather the test of time quite spectacularly because, you know, they're amazing. But I mean, just generally speaking, I think games like this, I think, you know, our nature is just to enjoy, you know, or to play stuff like this, to do stuff like this. You know, our human curiosity and all that. I think a game like Keyforge really taps into that human curiosity, and I think it also kind of taps into that, you know, exploration desire. You know, like playing sealed Keyforge is just a great format. I mean, yeah, you might get a cruddy deck, but still, you know, still such a cool format. Archon is also, in my opinion, a really cool format. I think you're gonna find less people playing Archon, because that's gonna be your more competitive format, I think. So it's definitely gonna have a smaller number of players. I don't know if the scene will be smaller. It might be a merged scene. I don't know. It might be the same scene as the sealed tournaments. It just might be a different area, where you have people that play in a different way. I don't know. Maybe they'll be two totally different tournaments. That's definitely possible. So I do think it's you know, it's quite fascinating when I look at it. You know, like I said, it's very unlikely I'll be able to even participate in that kind of stuff. Yeah, much more than a very small local scene, which is actually more kind of my thing. You know, I kind of like the more small scale local scene kind of stuff. That's more comfortable to me. So I know you guys are probably from all over the place, all over the world, really, thanks to the internet and everybody being able to talk to everybody, which I think is quite awesome. Love that invention. They did a great job. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it should be quite cool. I think there's quite a potential for a large amount of just game formats and game scenes and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of potential, you know, in Keyforge for that kind of stuff, and I think that's pretty cool. And I think it's pretty cool that we have such an unusual environment that we are entering now compared to what we're used to. I mean, we're used to booster pack driven card games that eventually boil down to who bought enough. Now, I don't know if Keyforge is going to share that, just because, like I said, you can still get really good decks online, for one, because people, I think, grasping the mechanics of each one of these releases is going to take a bit of time. And so people are going to have to understand the new synergies and new combinations. And because you don't have the old synergies and old combinations, you know, other than buying the old product, you're going to have to figure the whole new one out each time. And I think that's just a very, very different environment. That one's so not lined up. That's a very, very, very different environment than, you know, what you see for most of these other games. And, you know, that's part of the reason I want to get this in the hands of local kids. I think the other reason is, I think, you know, this is going to be really popular amongst their generation. I really think it is. Again, amongst, you know, the younger kids, you know, I think that, and I don't mean younger, you know, like, I don't mean, you know, super young, but the younger generations, I think, are just going to find this appealing. You know, there's not a lot of, I don't know. It's just removed some of the stuff, I think, that was a big barrier to the attraction of more of a larger potential player base. I think Keyforge applies to a much larger potential player base. That's what I think the biggest difference is between Keyforge and other collectible games. Because Keyforge is a collectible game. It's just a collectible deck game. And that's different. That's not the same thing as a collectible card game. And everybody who watches my videos, I'm sure you guys are well aware by now. And you know, I think collecting, you know, collecting this kind of stuff is just so different, because this is not, you know, like I said, it's a new kind of collection. And that makes it really kind of interesting, you know, at least from my point of view. because you know you end up with a somewhat new collection category, you know, to go along with Keyforge, and that's kind of cool. You know, because now you've got, you know, a collectible deck game, and that's pretty nifty. You know, that's like I said, I think that's it's quite brilliant, really. You know, it really is. Like, you know, the just the general coolness of this, and like I said, I don't think that this is just a trend. I think that people are going to continue buying these sets, even if they only buy a few decks. I think when the next set comes out, everybody who bought this set and enjoyed it will at least buy one deck. And so and I think that's a lot. Like that is a big deal, because that's a huge repeat player base if they enjoyed the game. So even if they tire of this set, when the next one comes out, because they enjoyed this set, most likely they'll buy it. I mean, that's just my intuition, and I think that's really cool. I think that's going to give, you know, and I think a lot of people are going to try this that normally wouldn't have tried a card game. That's a much bigger potential player base. You know, the fact that it's starting to attract people like board gamers and stuff, and war gamers, you know, just a more diverse audience. The fact that it's doing that is kind of a very interesting event, you know, all to itself. That's an event, you know, that's occurring. You know, it's you know, it's attracting a whole different group of people that aren't just trading card people. You know, it's more than that. And it's also attracting trading card people. Not all of them, you know, definitely not all of them. There's definitely people that are like, it's not constructible, I will never play it. And cool, okay. I completely understand your sentiment. Yep, you're right, it is not a constructible game. And for some people, that's going to be a big downer. Like that's going to be a complete, I don't like this because of that. You know, that is the case. Like some people are just going to not like that fact at all. They're going to be really down on that. And, you know, that's okay. You know, because they have the games that they like. You know, and if Keyforge isn't among them, you know, that's cool. Because we all have our own games. You know, we all get to enjoy our own, you know, games and hobbies. You know, and I have other games I like to play too. I just don't cover them here. I just, you know, just don't. I think that's more of a time thing and a money thing. Like I couldn't afford to cover all the games I play, you know, because I don't own all of them for you know, for the first point. And you know, it would just take just a tremendous amount of time. I can't even, you know, think about how much time that's going to take just overall. Oh, I need to change out my tape. So, but yeah, no, I think this game has a really wide appeal. I think that, you know, whoops, really, did that just come off? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. It chose to separate from the roll in a weird way. That was kind of unusual. Alright, so there we go. And back to what we were doing. But yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a decent number of younger people who like this, as long as they can get a hold of it. And so far, Fantasy Flight seems to be keeping up with demand. And they can print this set for quite some time before. I mean, even now it's still hard to find a semi, you know, a copy of, you know, a deck. Like it's really hard to find things where there's even a large number of stuff that overlaps. You know, if you start putting in criteria for certain cards you want to see that you saw in a cool deck, really quickly, you know, the number of decks that meet that criteria just narrows to none. So, you know, it's like there's just a tremendous amount of, you know, possible decks. You know, there really is a tremendous amount of possible decks. Then add into the whole Maverick thing. You know, Mavericks that can even change the way a deck plays. You know, like a certain Maverick can definitely change the way a deck plays, and completely catch your opponent off guard. So I think that is something that is really kind of interesting. You know, in Keyforge, is that you kind of, oh yeah, well, that one's gonna have to be retaped. Is that you kind of see that that kind of mix. I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, I think that we're gonna see Keyforge going for quite some time. I think it's well on its way. You know, and I think there are a lot of people who are interested in giving this away, you know, over the holidays, or, you know, just when they don't need a deck, they give it to somebody. They're like, well, okay, oh, you don't have Keyforge? Well, here you go. You know, because it may be a deck they just don't like. You know, and there's definitely decks like that, you know, where you're just like, yeah, I don't like this deck. And it doesn't mean the deck isn't powerful, because you can have a deck that's powerful and you can not. You just don't like the play style. I don't like the way this deck plays. You know, there's definitely, that definitely happens. Where you'll get a deck and you're like, I don't like the way this deck plays. But it's still a cool, you know, it's still a good deck. It's not actually a bad deck. It just doesn't play mechanically the way you would like. That definitely happens. Still waiting on one of my friends. He's getting it. He's getting Keyforge. He hasn't got it yet, but he's going to be picking it up. So that's kind of cool. So I'm definitely looking forward to a "this is my first deck" tournament amongst me and my friends. You know, who cracked the best deck first. One of my friends has a pretty good deck as his first deck, so it's not looking good for me. I don't think. I think he's gonna beat me. I just think his deck is better, but it's not you know, at a power curve level where I couldn't win. And I think that's the thing. A lot of these decks are close enough together. There's really just a small number of outliers on the bottom and the top. You know, like these are decks that are way above or below the power curve relative to every other deck. And that only exists in a small, really small fraction of decks. So for the most part, you're just not going to, you know, see or even face the decks that fall in that category, because you probably didn't get one. You probably got the average deck, which falls in the middle with everything else. That's usually the way it seems, like, because everybody's deck seems to have, oh, you have a couple of the good cards, but then, oh, you have this nice glaring weakness right here. All right, that's kind of the way all the decks seem to be. It's like, you have all these cool cards, and oh, by the way, this gigantic hole of a weakness right here that your deck has, if you face a deck that exploits this, you are going to just get trashed. And there are decks like that. Definitely decks like that. As a matter of fact, I think the majority of decks are like that. Even decks where people are like, this deck is super powerful, there's always like some kind of glaring weakness in the deck. And if you can find a way to exploit that, and you have the right deck to do it. Now, like I said, that's why you get into the power curve at some point in time where you say, ah, this deck is powerful enough to overcome its general weakness in this area because it's so strong in these other areas. Now that definitely happens. Like, I still haven't seen like a super hardcore capture Arise deck, like with 3 Arise. That would just be really fun. Matter of fact, you know, if I really wanted to, you know, if you want to say a Horseman deck, I'd want a double 4 Horseman deck with 2 Arise and an Epic Quest, or at least 2 Arise, maybe 3 Arise. You know, something along those lines. Just for the silly funness of it, that would be something that I'd, you know, be impressed with. Now, I mean, I guess there could also be, you know, like a double Arise single Horseman version that would be really good. And usually you can find, you know, versions that do or don't contain Arise for just about every combination. that are really good. And you don't need a rise. There's decks out there that are just super powerful. Don't need any rise at all. Have a totally different method of dealing with things. You know, there's insanely high board wipe decks like that, you know, contain 6 board wipes, and you're like, okay, yeah, it doesn't matter what they play. I'm going to wipe everything they play every time I feel like it, because I'm always going to have a board wipe in my hand. Like I have one of those decks. You know, so it's just nuts when it comes to board wipe. But then it only has, you know, a few ways of controlling amber. So if your opponent can kind of get away from you amber-wise, you're going to be in a lot more trouble with that deck. You know, and so, like I said, there's just so many different wild variations these decks can take. You know, I've actually got a key hammer deck that hasn't arrived yet, but it's a key hammer that you can cycle the key hammer. So it's like an auto hammer. You know, you can every other turn, you know, drop a key hammer. So and it has the Lash of Broken Dreams in it to make it even better. And it had some other cool stuff in it. So it's like, you know, oh yeah, you forged your key, boom, I unforged it. Oh, by the way, now it costs you 9 again. You know, so it's a constant lose 3. So even if they manage to forge it, it's like having you know, just a never-ending, you know, -3 on them. And you know, there's cool stuff like that, which works really good. Matter of fact, if a deck managed to forge multiple keys, you know, now it can't do the hammer fast enough to do 2 in a turn. Or wait, no, maybe it could. It had some pretty cool capabilities. Let's just say that. And so there's decks like that that are out there that are really, really cool. You know, it doesn't look like there's a lot of decks that use the Sting that have a ton of keys and stuff in them that are really, really good. I'm sure there's some. Like I'm guessing probably the best Sting deck probably has 2 of the keys, not 3. It probably contains 2 of them. And the reason is one that contains 3 just seems to be, there's only 8 the Sting decks that contain 3 keys. At least the combination of the 3 keys that mine contains. So that's not a lot of decks, and none of them had really powerful stuff. At least not that I noticed on my very, very quick glance. So that means that as of right now, there is no high-powered Sting deck, at least in that, you know, 3 key category. Now there might be in the 2 key category, where you've got the Sting, 2 keys, and then bait and switch, and you know, maybe Too Much to Protect, and some other really just good stuff, and some you know, heavy amber gain or something in there. That would be a cool, you know, kind of a cool deck. Although I don't know, you know, because of the generation of the other Sting decks, I don't know how much better the 2 Sting key Sting decks are going to be. So that was kind of interesting to find out. Masters still seem to be somewhat common. I just don't see them as being that rare. I definitely wouldn't pick any more up. They're just not, unless they're in a good deck. Like if they're in a good deck that's playable and it will be fun, yeah, then the Master's worth it. You know, because the deck is worth it, not the Master. And the Master just adds, you know, maybe, I don't know. The Master's going to add a couple bucks to the value probably of a deck, and you know, so if it's a bad deck, you know, add a few dollars to the value of a bad deck, you know, so it will be worth, you know, maybe $4. So, you know, I don't see the Masters being worth very much just overall, in the greater scheme of things, just because there's enough of them. They're kind of common. I mean, they're not common, but they're not super rare either. They're more common than any specific Maverick by a significant margin. So, and we're like Mavericks. I think all Mavericks are, you know, on the rarity scale, they're all relatively rare. All Mavericks seem to fall into that category. You know, where maybe, you know, maybe there's a grand total of, you know, I don't know, maybe, you know, 100. I haven't seen all the numbers on how many there are, but you can go online and kind of check and say, oh, okay, so I want an Arise Maverick, and so I check how many, you know, of this house have this Maverick, right? And then you just go through how many of this house, how many of that house, and then eventually, you know, I think it looks like they're probably going to right now average at about 100 total Mavericks. So that's a decent number, you know, but it's still not massive. Now, as we wait on the next print run, that number of Mavericks is going to increase. The number of decent Mavericks is also going to increase. The number of bad Mavericks will also increase. I think overall, you know, the Mavericks themselves are, you know, they're probably going to be, you know, they're going to be something. Just because they're a Maverick and there's just a limited number of them. I don't know if they're worth a ton, you know, like this, I don't think every Maverick is worth, you know, a lot. You know, right now I think, you know, I think any Maverick deck selling for probably, you know, $10 is still worth $10. I think a Maverick deck, you know, is going to be worth, no matter how many times you open a cruddy Maverick when you're opening a deck, it's still going to be like, oh, cool, I have a Maverick. I'm probably going to keep that or sell it. You know, and so I think every Maverick seems to have at least some raw value, unless now there is a possibility unless the deck is just absolute utter trash. But even then, like I said, there's just so few Mavericks. Not everybody's going to own a Maverick. There's just a limited supply. You know, if there's, you know, 100 of every specific Maverick and 370 cards, or 300 and whatever thousand decks. If that's what we're at, that means that, you know, there's going to be, you know, what, 37,000 total Mavericks approximately as of right now. So that's not a huge amount. I mean, 37,000. Let's see, that would be, is it 37,000? Yeah, it might be. So let's see, that would be what, almost 10-11%, something like that. 12%. I mean, there's definitely a decent number of Mavericks out there. But again, we come to the individual Mavericks, so there's just not that many of those. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, I just think it's one of those kind of interesting things. And I probably did the math wrong, you know, right in front of everybody, but that's totally cool, because I know I probably did. But overall, like I said, I think, you know, when you really look at it, because you can go online, you can run the totals yourself and easily just compare versus the number of total decks. You know, if there's 100, you know, Arise Mavericks and there's, you know 300,000 decks, you know, how many total, you know, what percentage of the decks are Arise, and, you know, all that, you know, and that's not too hard to calculate. You know, it's not a giant percentage. Now the overall Mavericks, you know, like say you take 100 and you multiply it by 370. Oops, don't need that yet. Multiply it by 370, and you know, what is that? 37,000. So, you know, that is our total Maverick count approximately. You know, and then of course some of those don't even have Mavericks. Like well, maybe they all do, but I've never seen a Library Access Maverick. We have seen a Pit Demon Maverick, which is just hilarious. A Pit Demon Maverick in a deck that didn't have Dis, even better. So if you play your Pit Demon Maverick, you then end your own game using that deck. That is just absolutely hilarious. Worst Maverick ever. That's like the worst Maverick you could possibly have. So still kind of funny. It's still worth something, I think. You know, that's my opinion. I think that that Pit Demon Maverick is actually, or sorry, Pit Lord Maverick is actually worth something. You know, just because it is such a messed up Maverick to have. It's almost comical. So that's one of those funny circumstances, that Maverick right there. And so you do get that kind of generation sometimes in this game, which can be absolutely hilarious when you pull something. You're like, what? what was it thinking when it did this? You know, it's like certain cards it seems to just not pay attention to and spawn in properly. And so it's like, oh, great, you know, I have all these, you know, cards that are, you know, insert, do whatever, and then it spawned in a card that shuts it all down. It's like, oh, thanks, algorithm. So, you know, it does that sometimes. It's not very often, though. Still funny when it does, though. Yeah, so I think overall, you know, this should be an interesting holiday season, and hopefully I get this out in January to the local kids so that they can play it. You know, that's really my hope. So, well, I hope you guys have a good night, and I'm gonna finish getting these sealed up, and I'm gonna go take care of the rest of the things I need to do. So later.